A mother's heartbreak, daughter's belly grows, neighbor's dark secret uncovered. In a world where the bonds of family are tested by time and adversity, parental love stands as a beacon of hope and strength. This heart-wrenching story follows a mother as she faces challenges that most could never imagine, driven by an unyielding love for her child. How far will a mother go to protect her daughter? Watch to find out. And if you're moved by this display of parental love, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Stories TH for more powerful, emotional stories. A mother's intuition, protecting your child in the face of hidden dangers. Maria was a single mother, a resilient woman who had faced numerous challenges after the death of her husband. Yet, the greatest challenge of all was now her daughter Lauren. Lauren, only 12 years old, had always been the apple of her mother's eye. Since her husband's passing, Maria had dedicated herself entirely to raising her daughter, providing love, care, and the stability that any child needs to thrive. However, lately, something about Lauren's behavior had been troubling Maria. It was subtle at first, but as time went on, the signs became undeniable. Lauren had always been a healthy, energetic child. She loved school, enjoyed playing with her friends, and had an enthusiasm for life that any parent would cherish. But recently, Maria noticed a distinct change. Every morning, Lauren would sit at the dining table, picking at her breakfast, her once enthusiastic eyes now dull and tired. Her school uniform, usually a bit big on her, now fit in a way that was more than just the passing of growth. There was a noticeable bulge in her stomach, and her energy was dwindling. Maria, trying to remain calm, asked Lauren if she had finished her meal. "Yes, Mom," Lauren replied softly, avoiding Maria's concerned gaze. But it was hard for Maria to ignore the uneaten food on the table and the way Lauren's body seemed to be changing. As the days passed, it became increasingly clear that something was wrong. Lauren had become distant, refusing to open up about what she was experiencing, and Maria was left to wonder if there was more beneath the surface. One morning, as Maria walked her daughter to the gate, their neighbor Matthew appeared across the street. Matthew was a man who lived alone, and though he was often friendly, there was something about him that unsettled Maria. His comment about Lauren growing up fast felt too personal, and his gaze lingered too long. Maria couldn't help but feel that something wasn't quite right about his attention towards her daughter. He always seemed to have a warm smile, but Maria's instincts told her to be cautious. That night, Maria lay awake in bed, her thoughts racing. A strange noise interrupted her uneasy thoughts. Maria jumped from the bed and rushed to Lauren's room, only to find the door locked. A cold wave of panic washed over her as she knocked and called out to her daughter. "Lauren, what are you doing?" There was no response, but then, after what seemed like an eternity, the door clicked open. Lauren, pale and visibly shaken, stood before her mother. "I just dropped something," Lauren quickly explained, but Maria's suspicions only grew stronger. The following day, while at work in the bakery, Maria confided in her close friend Rose, who had always been someone Maria could trust. Rose noticed the change in Lauren and mentioned seeing her with Matthew at the market. Lauren had never mentioned this to her mother, and Maria's mind began to race. Why hadn't Lauren told her about this interaction with Matthew? Could this be the cause of her daughter's unusual behavior? Maria's fears mounted as she continued to notice strange occurrences. One day, she returned home early and discovered unfamiliar footsteps in the kitchen. When she investigated, the kitchen window was wide open, letting in a chilly breeze. Their cat, Luna, was cowering in the corner, fur bristling, seemingly terrified of something. The oddness of the situation seemed to grow every day, but it wasn't until she noticed Lauren's window, frequently left open despite the cold weather, that she realized something was very wrong. The discovery of strange fingerprints on the window frame only added to Maria's anxiety. Was someone sneaking into her home? As the days went on, Lauren's health seemed to worsen, and her emotional distance from Maria increased. The once thriving girl seemed to be shrinking in front of her mother's eyes, and Maria knew she had to get to the bottom of it before it was too late. One day, while standing in her kitchen, Maria noticed Matthew outside, holding bread for her and Lauren. Something about his presence, as usual, set her on edge. Luna, the family cat, hissed violently at him, her claws scratching at the floor as if sensing the danger. Maria tried to remain polite, but her discomfort was impossible to hide. After Matthew left, Maria became determined to find out what he was up to. What was he giving Lauren, and why was he showing up at all hours? That night, Maria decided to inspect the security footage she had installed months ago. At first, the footage was uneventful, showing only the usual activity of their home. However, as she reviewed footage from a week ago, Maria froze. Matthew was clearly visible sneaking into her house through the kitchen window. He seemed to be looking around for something, then stood still, staring up at the stairs leading to Lauren's room, his gaze cold and calculating. Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the footage in horror. The next morning, Maria confronted Lauren, but her daughter's responses only seemed to deepen her fears. Lauren was evasive, quickly changing the subject when Matthew's name came up. Maria's heart broke as she realized her daughter was hiding something from her, something that could be dangerous. Desperate for answers, Maria went to a local pharmacy, where she handed over the mysterious pill bottle she had found in Lauren's room. The pharmacist, Mr. Alberto, examined the bottle and confirmed that it was not labeled, but the smell suggested it could be a homemade supplement. He recommended that Maria take it to a doctor or a lab for testing, and that's when the full weight of the situation hit her. Maria had to act quickly. The investigation continued, and with the help of her friend Rose and a neighbor named Carmen, Maria pieced together more disturbing details about Matthew's past. He had once worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but was fired after a scandal involving counterfeit drugs. Maria's fears about his involvement in Lauren's condition grew, and she knew that she needed to protect her daughter at all costs. After gathering enough evidence, including security footage and a strange bottle of pills, Maria finally took action and went to the police. They listened to her, reviewing the evidence and launching an investigation into Matthew's activities. As the investigation unfolded, Maria's fears were confirmed. Matthew had been giving Lauren dangerous, unregulated medicine that was causing her physical symptoms. Despite his attempts to justify his actions, Matthew was arrested and taken into custody. His arrogance was palpable even as he was confronted with his crimes. Maria finally felt a sense of relief as she watched him being escorted away. She had done what she could to protect her daughter, but it wasn't over yet. Lauren still needed time to recover physically and emotionally from the trauma. Over the next few weeks, Lauren's health improved as she received proper medical care, and Maria's relationship with her daughter grew stronger. The guilt Maria felt for not noticing the signs sooner was hard to shake, but she knew that she had done the right thing. Lauren, too, learned an important lesson about honesty and trusting her mother with her struggles. Maria's journey was one of fear, confusion, and heartbreak, but it was also a journey of strength, resilience, and love. She had faced the unimaginable in order to protect her daughter from a dangerous situation. In the end, the bond between mother and daughter proved unbreakable, and they learned the importance of communication, trust, and taking action when something doesn't feel right. As they moved forward, Maria knew that nothing, not even the darkest of days, could ever sever the love they shared. The story of Maria and Lauren serves as a powerful reminder to all of us to trust our instincts, to protect our loved ones, and to always be vigilant when something doesn't seem right. No matter how busy life gets, it's crucial to pay attention to the signs and act before it's too late. As Maria's story shows, love and determination can overcome the greatest of challenges. A mother's struggle, the hidden dangers behind a neighbor's smile. Maria had always prided herself on being a strong and dedicated mother. Since her husband passed away, her world revolved around her daughter, Lauren. She poured all of her love, attention, and care into raising her only child, hoping to provide a life filled with warmth and happiness despite their circumstances. Lauren, a 12-year-old girl, had always been full of life. She was active, loved to play, and had a heart full of joy. But recently, something had shifted. Maria noticed it first in the way Lauren's energy seemed to fade. The once vibrant girl now appeared tired all the time, her face often pale and her movements sluggish. She became more distant, refusing to talk about what was happening to her. The worst part was that Lauren's physical appearance was changing too, and Maria couldn't help but notice the growing bump on her daughter's stomach. It was a typical morning when Maria first became seriously concerned. She had walked Lauren to the gate, watching her disappear down the street as usual. As she turned back to the house, their neighbor, Matthew, appeared on the other side of the street, holding a bag of bread and offering his usual friendly smile. "Your daughter is growing up so fast," he said, but Maria couldn't shake the discomfort she felt whenever he spoke to her. She always found his compliments a little too familiar, and his gaze lingered on Lauren more than it should have. That night, Maria lay in bed, restlessly staring at the ceiling, her mind swirling with worry. She heard strange noises from Lauren's room, something she couldn't quite explain, but when she knocked on her daughter's door, Lauren quickly explained it away as having dropped something. Maria, however, couldn't dismiss the gnawing feeling that something was very wrong. The next morning, after receiving an alarming tip from her friend Rose, Maria began to connect the dots. Rose, who had seen Lauren with Matthew at the market the day before, mentioned how Matthew had given Lauren something that looked like medicine. Why had Lauren accepted medicine from Matthew without telling Maria? This thought lingered in Maria's mind as she tried to piece together the strange occurrences at home. She began noticing that Lauren's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, unexplained tiredness, an unwillingness to eat, and a noticeable swelling in her abdomen. Maria had to do something. But what? As days passed, Maria became more vigilant. One day, when she returned home early, she noticed an unfamiliar set of footsteps in the kitchen, yet no one was around. The window was wide open, and their cat, Luna, was crouched in a corner, growling as though sensing something. Maria checked the rest of the house, but found nothing out of the ordinary. However, the feeling of unease didn't leave her. Her suspicions about Matthew's involvement grew when she found strange fingerprints on Lauren's window frame and noticed it left open again despite the cold weather. Something was definitely not right. Later that week, Maria's concerns only deepened when she saw Matthew outside the house again, with more strange behavior. He was too insistent on talking to her, and Luna hissed aggressively at him as if to warn Maria. Something about the way Matthew lingered around the house, constantly showing up at odd times, made her feel even more uncomfortable. But it wasn't until Maria found an unlabeled pill bottle hidden in Lauren's room that she realized how deep the situation went. What kind of medicine was this? Why was Lauren hiding it from her? Was this the cause of her deteriorating health? That night, Maria couldn't stay still. She reviewed the security footage she had installed a few weeks earlier. At first, the footage appeared normal, until a clip from a few nights ago made her stomach drop. There was Matthew, sneaking through the kitchen window, watching Lauren's room from the shadows. She saw him linger at the door and then leave quietly. Why was he acting like this? What was his true intention? The next day, Maria sought advice from her close friend, Sarah, who worked at the local clinic. Maria showed Sarah the bottle of pills she had found, and Sarah agreed to have them analyzed. But Maria knew time was running out. The night after Sarah's advice, she saw something truly chilling. More footage from the security cameras revealed Matthew entering Lauren's room at night, staying there for almost 10 minutes before quietly leaving. Maria's blood ran cold. This confirmed her worst fears. Matthew was targeting Lauren, and his intentions were malicious. Maria had to know more about Matthew's past, so she turned to Carmen, a neighbor who was known for keeping a close eye on everyone in the neighborhood. Carmen told Maria that Matthew had worked in the pharmaceutical industry years ago, but he had been fired after being involved in a counterfeit drug scandal. Maria's worst fear was coming true. Matthew wasn't just some odd neighbor. He was a dangerous individual, and he had access to things that could harm her daughter. Determined to stop him before it was too late, Maria confronted Matthew. She went to his house and knocked on his door, demanding answers. At first, Matthew tried to explain himself, claiming he only wanted to help Lauren by giving her medicine. Maria was furious, but she didn't let him off the hook. "You stay away from my daughter, or I'll call the police," she warned him, her voice steady but full of anger. But Matthew's smug smile remained, and he merely nodded before closing the door, leaving Maria standing outside, filled with both fear and determination. After a few more sleepless nights, Maria received the test results from Sarah. The pills contained compounds that caused fluid retention in the body. Maria knew this could be the reason Lauren's stomach had been growing. The situation was more serious than she had realized. Maria immediately took action. She filed a police report providing all the evidence she had gathered, including the security footage, the pills, and testimonies from neighbors like Rose and Carmen. The police were quick to act. Matthew was arrested on charges of trespassing, providing harmful medication, and endangering the life of a minor. When the police entered Matthew's home, they found evidence of counterfeit drugs and illegal activities. Matthew tried to justify his actions, claiming that he was simply a pioneer and that his medicine would one day be recognized for its brilliance. But the evidence was overwhelming. The law had finally caught up with him. As the trial began, Maria and Lauren were present in court. Matthew's arrogance was on full display, even as the prosecutor presented the evidence against him. Despite the mountain of proof, Matthew continued to claim that he was misunderstood. He believed his actions were justified, that his so-called medicine could revolutionize health. But the judge wasn't fooled. Matthew was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. His days of tormenting Lauren and others were over. For Maria, the verdict brought a sense of relief. But the road to recovery was just beginning. Lauren's health was improving, but the emotional scars of what had happened would take time to heal. Maria vowed never to let anyone harm her daughter again. She would protect Lauren at all costs, no matter what it took. Days later, after months of uncertainty and fear, Maria finally saw her daughter starting to return to her old self. Lauren was back in school, her energy returning, and her once pale face was now flush with health. Maria, too, found a renewed sense of peace. She knew her daughter would be okay. But the lesson from this experience was clear. When something feels wrong, always trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs, because they could be pointing to something much bigger. The story of Maria and Lauren is a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance, intuition, and the unconditional love of a mother. Maria's journey from fear to determination teaches us that we must always act to protect our loved ones, even when it means going against the odds. Trust in yourself, in your instincts, and in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. Unmasking the hidden danger. A mother's fight for her daughter's safety. Maria had always been a dedicated mother to her 12-year-old daughter, Lauren. Since her husband passed away, she poured all her love and energy into raising Lauren, ensuring that her daughter would have everything she needed despite their modest circumstances. Lauren had always been a bright, energetic, and joyful girl. She was the light of Maria's life. But over the past few weeks, something had changed in Lauren. Maria noticed that her daughter's once vibrant energy seemed to be slipping away, and a growing sense of unease began to creep into Maria's heart. Lauren became increasingly fatigued, barely eating, and seemed to lack the enthusiasm she once had. Her mother's concerns deepened when she noticed the strange, unexplained bulge in Lauren's stomach. Maria didn't know what was going on, but she was sure something was terribly wrong. She tried to talk to Lauren about it, but her daughter would brush it off, claiming she was just tired. Maria could see that Lauren was visibly shrinking into herself, becoming more distant and quiet. It wasn't just that her daughter was tired, it was something more serious, something that Maria couldn't yet grasp. She had seen the telltale signs in her daughter, but was too afraid to confront the uncomfortable truth of what might be happening. Then, one morning, as Maria walked Lauren to the school gate, she was greeted by their neighbor, Matthew. He was a friendly man who lived alone and often stopped by to chat. This time, however, something about his words made Maria feel uneasy. He had commented on how much Lauren had grown, but there was something in his tone, in his look, that unsettled her. He always had an intense gaze, especially when he looked at Lauren. While Maria smiled politely and made small talk, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Matthew's behavior always seemed just a bit too familiar, and it had begun to creep her out. That night, Maria was restless. Her mind raced with worries about her daughter. The wind howled outside, and the eerie quiet inside her home only made her fears more pronounced. Suddenly, she heard a noise coming from Lauren's room. Maria quickly jumped out of bed, heart racing, and rushed to the door. She knocked softly, asking what was going on, but there was no response. After a moment, she tried the doorknob but found it locked from the inside. A sense of dread filled Maria's chest as she pressed her ear to the door and heard faint movements. What was happening in there? Was Lauren in some sort of trouble? "Lauren, open the door," Maria called, trying to keep her voice steady. After a long pause, the door clicked open, and there stood Lauren, pale and wide-eyed, as though she had just experienced a panic attack. She quickly explained that she had just dropped something, but Maria didn't buy it. The odd behavior, the pale face, and the panic in Lauren's voice made it impossible for Maria to ignore that something deeper was going on. The following day, Maria ran in her close friend Rose at work. Rose, who had known both Maria and Lauren for years, noticed the change in Lauren as well. She asked how her daughter had been, but Maria admitted she wasn't sure. Lauren claimed she was just tired, but Maria couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more sinister at play. Rose mentioned that she had seen Lauren at the market with Matthew the day before, something that struck Maria as odd. Why had Lauren been with Matthew without telling her mother? This small detail sent a chill through Maria, and she felt her suspicions rising. Later that day, when Maria came home early, she noticed an unfamiliar set of footsteps in the kitchen. She checked the kitchen, but there was no one there. The window was wide open, letting in a chilly breeze. As she continued her search, their cat, Luna, was found crouched in a corner, growling as if sensing something dangerous. Maria could feel the hair on the back of her neck standing up. She didn't know what was going on, but she knew something was terribly wrong. She tried to calm herself, but the unease only grew stronger. As the days passed, Maria noticed that Lauren's behavior grew even more erratic. She was distancing herself more, avoiding eye contact, and becoming secretive. It was clear that something was troubling Lauren, but Maria couldn't figure out what it was. Her daughter refused to talk to her about it, which made Maria even more concerned. Maria's suspicions grew when she noticed that Lauren's window was frequently left open at night, despite the cold weather. One night, when she closed the window, Maria noticed strange fingerprint marks on the window frame. Her heart sank. Someone had been inside. Maria began to monitor everything more closely, and her suspicions only deepened when she saw Matthew standing outside her house again. This time, Luna reacted aggressively, hissing and scratching at the floor, clearly disturbed by Matthew's presence. Maria knew something was terribly wrong. Why was Matthew lingering around the house so often? And why was he so interested in Lauren? That evening, Maria decided to take matters into her own hands. She decided to check the security footage she had installed a few weeks earlier. What she discovered made her blood run cold. She saw Matthew sneaking into the kitchen window late at night, acting as if he were watching Lauren's room. He stayed there for several minutes, and Maria could see him observing the house carefully. The footage confirmed her worst fears. Something was going on between Matthew and Lauren, and it wasn't good. She had to get to the bottom of this. The next morning, Maria visited Sarah, a trusted friend who worked at the local clinic. She showed Sarah the bottle of pills she had found in Lauren's room. Sarah immediately recognized the seriousness of the situation and advised Maria to take the pills to a lab for testing. Maria couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in her gut. Something about this medicine didn't feel right. Why would Lauren be taking pills from Matthew without telling her? The next few days were filled with mounting anxiety. Sarah had sent the pills for testing, but Maria couldn't wait around for the results. She had to confront Matthew. But before she could, she learned from Carmen, a neighbor who had been watching Matthew for some time, that he had a questionable history. Matthew had worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but had been fired after being implicated in a counterfeit drug scandal. This revelation hit Maria like a ton of bricks. If Matthew had been involved in illegal activities before, could he be doing the same thing again? Was he using Lauren to test his dangerous concoctions? With her suspicions confirmed, Maria decided to confront Matthew directly. She went to his house and demanded answers. When Matthew opened the door, his usual smile faltered, and his posture seemed defensive. "I've just been trying to help Lauren feel better," he said, attempting to explain away his actions. Maria, however, wasn't buying it. She confronted him about the pills and demanded he stay away from her daughter. Despite his attempts to downplay the situation, Maria was resolute. She warned Matthew to stay away from Lauren, or else she would call the police. As Maria left his house, her heart was racing. She knew she had done the right thing, but her worries were far from over. Days later, after the results of the test came back, Maria learned that the pills contained harmful substances. They had been causing fluid retention in Lauren's body, which explained the growing bump in her stomach. This was a wake-up call for Maria. She couldn't let Matthew get away with what he had done. She decided to take immediate action, bringing all the evidence she had gathered to the police. The police acted swiftly. Matthew was arrested for trespassing, providing harmful medication to a minor, and endangering Lauren's life. When they searched his house, they found evidence of counterfeit drugs and a number of illegal substances. Matthew tried to defend himself, claiming that he was a pioneer and that his medicine would change the world. But his arrogance didn't impress the authorities. The case was clear he had been harming Lauren and needed to face the consequences. The trial was a public spectacle. Matthew stood in front of the judge, defiant and unrepentant. But the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Maria and Lauren were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. Matthew would no longer be able to hurt anyone. For Maria, the ordeal was not over. She had to help Lauren heal, physically and emotionally, from the trauma of what had happened. But she had done the right thing. She had protected her daughter from someone who had tried to harm her, and she had taken a stand. In the end, Maria's love for her daughter had overcome her fear, and she knew that, together, they would heal and move forward. As Lauren recovered and returned to school, Maria watched her daughter with pride. Lauren had gone through something no child should have to endure, but she had emerged stronger. And Maria, too, had learned an important lesson. When something doesn't feel right, you have to trust your instincts and take action. The safety and well-being of your loved ones are always worth fighting for. The struggles of acceptance, a journey through rejection and redemption. Maria, a single mother, had always done everything in her power to provide for her daughter, Lauren. Life had become a delicate balance since the sudden passing of her husband. It was just the two of them now, navigating the ups and downs of life together. But recently, something had changed in Lauren, and Maria was beginning to fear that it was something far beyond the usual adolescent mood swings. Lauren, now 12, had always been a cheerful and energetic child. She was intelligent, outgoing, and adored by everyone around her. But recently, her behavior had shifted. She was no longer as talkative or lively, and Maria noticed that her daughter was becoming more withdrawn and tired. At first, Maria chalked it up to the pressures of school or perhaps a growing phase. But when she started noticing a concerning change in Lauren's appearance, an abnormal swelling in her stomach, Maria's fears escalated. One morning, Maria entered the kitchen to find Lauren sitting at the table, staring blankly at the food in front of her. The school uniform, too large for her now, only accentuated the odd swelling in Lauren's abdomen. Maria felt a knot form in her stomach as she asked, "Have you finished eating, honey?" Lauren nodded, but her eyes avoided her mother's gaze, a subtle sign that something was wrong. The uneaten food on the table and the hollow look in her daughter's eyes left Maria with a sinking feeling. It wasn't just the swelling. Something deeper, something invisible was wrong. As days passed, Maria's concerns grew. Lauren had become even more distant, retreating into her room after school, often pretending to study or do homework. But Maria could see the signs of something troubling beneath her daughter's attempts at normalcy. At night, Lauren's window was often left wide open, no matter how cold it was outside. A persistent feeling of unease began to creep into Maria's thoughts, gnawing at her until she could no longer ignore it. Then, One day, Maria's suspicion of something sinister was confirmed. As she was walking Lauren to the school gate, she saw their neighbor, Matthew, standing across the street. Matthew had lived next door for a few years now. He was always polite, often stopping by to chat with Maria about how fast Lauren was growing. Maria smiled politely, but something about Matthew's demeanor felt off. He commented on Lauren's growth and even said she was becoming a beautiful young lady. Maria was slightly taken aback. The way Matthew looked at Lauren, his intense, lingering gaze made Maria feel uncomfortable, though she couldn't quite place why. That night, Maria was restless, her mind swirling with worry. The wind howled outside, setting the tone for a sleepless night. As she lay in bed, she suddenly heard faint sounds coming from Lauren's room. Maria's heart skipped a beat. She jumped up from her bed and rushed to the door, knocking softly. "Lauren, what's going on in there?" she asked, but there was no response. Maria tried the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. Her heart raced with panic. After a few moments, Lauren opened the door, looking pale and shaken. "I just dropped something, Mom," Lauren explained, her voice tight, almost as if she had just experienced a panic attack. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something more was going on. The room seemed eerily quiet, and though everything appeared normal, Maria's gut told her otherwise. Her worries intensified when Lauren quickly excused herself, retreating to her room, leaving Maria standing in the hallway with a growing sense of dread. The next day, Maria met her close friend Rose, who noticed the change in Lauren as well. Over coffee, Rose asked how Lauren was doing, noting that she hadn't seemed well lately. Maria admitted that Lauren had been avoiding her, claiming she was just tired, but Maria felt that her daughter was hiding something. Rose, with a concerned expression, mentioned that she had seen Lauren at the market with Matthew, which only added fuel to Maria's growing anxiety. Why hadn't Lauren mentioned seeing Matthew? Maria's unease deepened. After that, the situation became even stranger. Maria returned home early one afternoon to find unfamiliar footsteps in the kitchen. She walked in, but found no one there. The kitchen window was wide open, letting in a cold breeze. Luna, their cat, was crouched in the corner, growling at something Maria couldn't see. The odd situation unsettled Maria even more. She tried to rationalize it, but the unease she felt was impossible to ignore. The next day, Maria decided to investigate further. She noticed that Lauren's window was frequently left open, even on chilly nights. One evening, Maria decided to close it and saw strange, fingerprint-like marks on the window frame. Someone had been inside her daughter's room. Her heart sank as she felt an icy chill spread through her veins. Something was terribly wrong, but what was it? Was it just her own paranoia, or was someone really trying to harm Lauren? Then, Maria decided to review the security camera footage she had installed around the house. She needed to find more clues, something to help her understand what was really happening. The footage showed Matthew appearing outside the kitchen window late at night. Maria's blood ran cold as she watched Matthew, standing in the kitchen, staring toward the stairs leading to Lauren's room. It wasn't just his presence that frightened her, it was the way he acted, the way he seemed to be observing everything so carefully. Maria fast-forwarded through the video, but Matthew was only in the kitchen for a short time before slipping away into the darkness. The footage continued to reveal disturbing details. In another clip, Maria saw Matthew handing Lauren a bottle of pills, something that looked suspiciously like the medicine she had found in Lauren's room. Maria's mind raced with fear. What was in those pills? Why hadn't Lauren told her about them? Maria immediately knew that something was terribly wrong. The next day, Maria took the bottle of pills to her friend Sarah, who worked at the local clinic. Sarah immediately examined the pills, and after a few moments, her expression grew serious. She couldn't say for sure what the pills were, but there was something about them that felt off. Maria's heart dropped into her stomach. Why had Matthew given Lauren these unidentified pills, and why had Lauren kept it a secret from her mother? Sarah recommended that Maria take Lauren to a doctor, and Maria realized that she could no longer wait. She had to act, and she had to act quickly. But first, she needed to know more about Matthew's past. After some investigation, she learned that Matthew had once worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but had been fired after being implicated in a counterfeit drug scandal. The realization hit Maria like a ton of bricks. Matthew had a history of being involved with dangerous substances. Was he still doing this? Had he been targeting Lauren with his poisonous concoctions? Maria knew she had to confront Matthew directly. She marched to his house, confronting him about the pills and his suspicious behavior. Matthew tried to defend himself, claiming that he only wanted to help Lauren feel better. But Maria didn't buy his story. She warned him to stay away from her daughter, threatening to call the police if he didn't. The next day, Maria visited the pharmacy to have the pills tested. The results confirmed her worst fears. Matthew's medicine contained harmful substances. Lauren's growing stomach was a sign of fluid retention caused by the toxins in the pills. Maria's worst nightmare was unfolding before her eyes. She knew she had to act now, not just for her own peace of mind, but for her daughter's safety. With evidence in hand, Maria took her case to the police. They immediately launched an investigation into Matthew's actions. When they searched his house, they found further evidence of counterfeit drugs and suspicious substances. Matthew was arrested, and Maria was able to breathe a sigh of relief. Her daughter was safe, and the man who had tried to harm her was no longer a threat. The case went to trial, and despite Matthew's defiant attitude, the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted of trespassing, providing harmful medication to a minor, and endangering Lauren's life. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and the court banned him from working in any pharmaceutical or medical capacity again. While the court case was a victory, Maria knew that this was just the beginning. She still had to help Lauren recover from the trauma she had experienced. But the experience had also taught her an important lesson. It was crucial to trust her instincts, to protect her loved ones, and to take action when something didn't feel right. Maria had saved her daughter, and in doing so, had also found the courage to confront her own fears. Now, as they moved forward together, Maria knew that they could face any challenge that life threw their way. Unmasking the danger, a mother's fight to protect her daughter. Maria had always believed in the importance of protecting her daughter, Lauren. As a single mother, she had taken on the responsibility of raising Lauren after her husband's passing. Maria had done everything she could to make sure her daughter was healthy and happy. But recently, things had begun to change in a way Maria couldn't understand, and the feeling of unease was growing with each passing day. Lauren, once a bright, energetic 12-year-old girl, had started to withdraw. Her behavior, once bubbly and full of energy, had turned somber. She became tired more easily, less talkative, and, most concerning of all, she had started to lose weight despite the fact that she wasn't eating properly. Maria had noticed something else too. Lauren's stomach had begun to swell unusually, and no matter how hard Maria tried, she couldn't get her daughter to explain what was going on. One morning, as Maria entered the kitchen to check on her daughter, she saw Lauren sitting at the table, staring blankly at her plate. Maria was immediately struck by the large bump in Lauren's stomach, which was hidden by the too large school uniform. Her uneaten food lay untouched, and the distant look in Lauren's eyes confirmed that something was terribly wrong. "Lauren, have you finished eating?" Maria asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Lauren nodded, but her eyes avoided Maria's gaze. A wave of dread washed over Maria. This wasn't just about Lauren not eating, it was deeper than that. Despite Maria's growing concern, Lauren continued to insist that everything was fine, chalking it up to being tired. But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on behind the scenes. Her motherly instinct screamed that Lauren was hiding something, and Maria was determined to find out the truth. Over the next few days, things only seemed to worsen. Lauren continued to avoid meals, and her tiredness seemed to worsen. The once vibrant child had become a mere shadow of herself. Maria tried her best to comfort her, but Lauren became more and more distant, retreating to her room after school and avoiding conversations. Maria soon noticed something else that disturbed her: the frequent visits by their neighbor, Matthew. Matthew, who lived alone in the house next door, had always been friendly, often chatting with Maria when he would pass by. He would comment on how quickly Lauren was growing up and every time he saw her, he would make remarks about how she was becoming a beautiful young lady. At first, Maria thought nothing of it, but there was always something unsettling about his attention. His smile seemed forced, and his gaze lingered just a little too long. Maria, unable to shake the sense of discomfort that Matthew's presence caused her, decided to confront him. But when she tried to engage Lauren about Matthew's visits, her daughter quickly changed the subject, offering no explanation and making excuses to retreat to her room. This made Maria even more uneasy. Was Lauren hiding something from her? Why was she so uncomfortable around Matthew? One night, Maria was jolted awake by strange noises coming from Lauren's room. Her heart pounded as she quickly rushed to the door and knocked softly. "Lauren, what's going on?" she asked, but there was no answer. Panicked, Maria tried the door, but it was locked from the inside. Her anxiety surged as she pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear what was going on. Through the quiet, she could just make out faint noises, footsteps, perhaps, or a soft rustling sound. After what felt like an eternity, Lauren opened the door. She appeared pale, and her face was flushed, as though she had just experienced a panic attack. "I just dropped something, Mom." "It's nothing," Lauren said quickly, avoiding her mother's gaze. But Maria wasn't convinced. Something was terribly wrong. The room looked fine, yet Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something had just transpired. Her daughter's sudden shift in behavior had become too much to ignore. The next day, Maria met up with her close friend Rose, hoping to find some answers. Rose had noticed Lauren's growing fatigue too, and she asked Maria how her daughter was doing. Maria explained the situation, and Rose, who had a sharp eye for detail, mentioned that she had seen Lauren talking to Matthew at the market the other day. According to Rose, they had looked somewhat friendly, and Matthew had handed Lauren something that looked like medicine or supplements. Maria was stunned. Lauren hadn't mentioned anything about seeing Matthew at the market. Why hadn't she told her mother about the encounter? This revelation sent a chill down Maria's spine. Matthew's behavior had always been odd, but now it seemed there was something darker brewing beneath the surface. Maria became obsessed with finding out what had really been going on. Her unease deepened after she found strange marks on the window frame of Lauren's room, fingerprints, but not Lauren's. Who could have been inside Lauren's room? Was Matthew coming into the house at night? And if so, what was he doing? Determined to find out the truth, Maria turned to the security camera she had installed in the house for extra peace of mind. She reviewed the footage, and what she saw confirmed her worst fears. Late at night, Matthew was clearly visible, sneaking into the house through the kitchen window. His actions were calculated and methodical, as if he was searching for something. On the screen, he paused for a moment, staring up toward Lauren's room. This was not just a casual visit. He was watching her, and Maria was sure of it. Even more disturbing was the footage from 2 weeks prior. Maria saw Matthew handing Lauren a small bottle of pills. The same pills that Maria had found in Lauren's room. What was in that bottle? Why had Lauren hidden it from her mother? The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but Maria needed more answers. She decided to visit her neighbor Carmen, who had always been observant of everything happening in the neighborhood. Maria asked Carmen if she knew anything about Matthew's past. Carmen hesitated before revealing that Matthew had once worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but had been fired after a scandal involving counterfeit drugs. Carmen didn't have many details, but Maria's suspicions were now confirmed. Matthew had a history with drugs, and it was clear he was still up to something dangerous. Now that Maria had enough evidence, she confronted Matthew directly. She demanded to know why he was giving her daughter pills, but Matthew was unfazed. He claimed he only wanted to help Lauren feel better, but Maria wasn't buying it. His calm, collected demeanor only made her more suspicious. She warned him to stay away from her daughter, or she would call the police. The following day, Maria took the bottle of pills to a pharmacist. He confirmed her fears the pills contained unidentified substances, some of which could cause fluid retention in the body. The pills were damaging Lauren's health. Maria knew it was time to act, but she needed more proof before she could confront Matthew or go to the police. After consulting with Sarah, a friend who worked at the local clinic, Maria realized just how serious the situation was. The The doctor confirmed that Lauren needed immediate medical attention to counteract the effects of the toxic substances in the pills. Maria's heart ached knowing that she had failed to recognize the danger earlier, but now she had a chance to save her daughter. Later that evening, Maria sat with Lauren, determined to confront her about the pills. With a gentle but firm tone, she asked Lauren if she had been taking medicine for Matthew. Lauren hesitated before finally admitting the truth. She had been taking the pills, believing that they would help her feel better. Maria held her daughter tightly, feeling both heartbreak and relief. At least now, they could face the situation together. The following day, Maria contacted the police and provided them with all the evidence she had gathered: the footage, the pills, and Lauren's diary. The police launched an investigation, and soon, Matthew was arrested for his actions. He was charged with trespassing, providing harmful medication to a minor, and endangering Lauren's life. Maria felt a weight lift from her shoulders as she realized that the man who had caused so much harm to her daughter would finally be held accountable. The trial was a pivotal moment in their journey. Matthew's arrogance shone through as he tried to justify his actions, claiming that he was simply trying to help Lauren. But the overwhelming evidence made it clear that Matthew had malicious intentions. The judge sentenced him to 10 years in prison, banning him from any future involvement in the pharmaceutical industry. In the days that followed, Maria focused on helping Lauren recover both physically and emotionally. Lauren was under the care of doctors and had begun to heal. As time passed, Maria realized that although this chapter in their lives was difficult, they had both come out stronger. The experience had brought them closer together, and Maria had learned a valuable lesson about trusting her instincts and the importance of never ignoring the signs when something isn't right. This journey was not just about a mother protecting her daughter, it was about resilience. Maria's courage and determination saved Lauren from further harm. And as they moved forward, they both knew that no matter what life threw their way, they would face it together. A mother's fight for her daughter's safety, unveiling the hidden danger. Maria had always been vigilant about the well-being of her daughter, Lauren. Ever since her husband's passing, Lauren had been Maria's everything. As a single mother, Maria devoted all her energy to raising her daughter and ensuring she lived a life full of love and care. But recently, things had taken a dark turn. Maria started noticing unsettling changes in Lauren's behavior, and no matter how much she tried to talk to her, Lauren kept her distance. Something was wrong, but Maria could not yet piece everything together. Lauren, who had once been a bright and energetic 12-year-old, seemed to be slipping into a shadow of herself. The vibrant energy she once had was slowly fading, and her behavior became increasingly withdrawn. She became noticeably tired and seemed to be losing weight, despite not eating well. However, the most alarming change was Lauren's stomach. It was visibly swollen, and no matter what Maria did, Lauren wouldn't explain why. Maria felt a deep sense of unease growing within her. But as much as she tried to reach out to Lauren, her daughter refused to talk. One morning, after Maria served breakfast, she noticed the large bump on Lauren's stomach, which was now impossible to ignore. Her school uniform, too big for her frame, only served to draw more attention to it. When Maria tried to engage her daughter, asking if she had eaten, Lauren quickly nodded, but her eyes avoided Maria's gaze. The food on her plate remained mostly untouched, and her distant demeanor made Maria's worry grow. This wasn't just tiredness, this was something more serious. As the days passed, Lauren's health seemed to deteriorate further. She became quieter and spent more time locked in her room. Maria noticed that Lauren was growing increasingly isolated, avoiding family meals and even the simple conversations that they used to have. Maria's motherly instinct screamed that something was wrong, but every time she asked Lauren about it, her daughter would brush it off with the same tired excuse, "I'm fine, Mom." Things became even more unsettling when Maria started noticing the frequent visits from their neighbor, Matthew. He lived alone in the house next door, and although he was friendly, his interactions with Maria and Lauren always made Maria feel uneasy. Matthew often stopped by to chat, remarking on how quickly Lauren was growing up and how well-behaved she was. His compliments always seemed a bit too intense, and the way he looked at Lauren made Maria uncomfortable. At first, Maria shrugged off the thoughts, thinking she was overreacting. But soon, the feeling became too strong to ignore. One evening, Maria heard a strange noise coming from Lauren's room. Alarmed, she rushed to her daughter's door and knocked. "Lauren, what's going on?" she asked, but there was no response. She tried the door, but it was locked from the inside. The sounds Maria heard were faint, but seemed like someone walking. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to remain calm. Finally, Lauren opened the door, but her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. "Mom, it's nothing. I just dropped something," she said quickly, avoiding eye contact. Maria's suspicion was now confirmed. Something was terribly wrong. The room seemed fine, but the unease that gripped Maria's heart wouldn't let her go. She couldn't ignore the fact that Lauren had been acting strangely, and now her behavior seemed even more concerning. Maria couldn't let this go on any longer. She needed answers. The next day, Maria met her close friend Rose at the bakery where they both worked. Rose had noticed Lauren's fatigue as well and asked how she was doing. Maria told her about the strange things she had observed, and Rose revealed something that made Maria's stomach drop. She told Maria that she had seen Lauren talking to Matthew at the market. According to Rose, they appeared to be quite friendly, and Matthew had handed Lauren a bag that looked like medicine or supplements. This revelation sent a chill down Maria's spine. Why hadn't Lauren told her about this? Maria's concerns grew even deeper. Why had Lauren been interacting with Matthew without telling her mother? What was he giving her? Maria decided to pay closer attention to everything that was happening around her. One night, Maria heard more unusual sounds, and when she went to investigate, she noticed strange fingerprint-like smudges on Lauren's bedroom window. The window had been left open, despite the chilly weather outside. Who had been in her daughter's room? And what were they doing there? Maria now knew she had to act fast. She decided to review the security footage she had installed in their home. After scrolling through the footage, Maria froze. Late one night, Matthew was clearly visible on the video, sneaking into the house through the kitchen window. He stood motionless in the kitchen for a few moments, and then his gaze turned toward the staircase leading to Lauren's room. He had been watching her, and Maria had no doubt about it. What happened next confirmed her worst fears. In footage from 2 weeks ago, Maria saw Matthew handing Lauren a small bottle of pills. It was the same bottle that Maria had found in Lauren's room. Her heart sank. Why had Lauren hidden this from her? Why was Matthew so involved in her daughter's life? And why hadn't she told Maria the truth? Determined to get to the bottom of it, Maria reached out to Carmen, a neighbor who had always kept an eye on the comings and goings in the neighborhood. Carmen revealed that she had seen Matthew standing near Maria's house late at night, looking in through Lauren's window. She also confirmed that Matthew had once worked in the pharmaceutical industry, but his career had been cut short after he was involved in a scandal. According to Carmen, Matthew had been fired for his involvement in a counterfeit drug operation, but no one had ever been able to gather enough evidence to prosecute him. Now everything was starting to make sense. Matthew had a background in pharmaceuticals, and his involvement in a counterfeit drug operation was likely tied to what was happening to Lauren. He had been sneaking into their house and giving Lauren medication that was clearly having a negative effect on her health. Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she realized just how much danger Lauren was in. With the evidence mounting, Maria decided to confront Matthew. She marched over to his house and knocked on his door. When Matthew answered, he appeared completely unbothered, but Maria could see through his calm demeanor. "I want to know what you've been giving my daughter," Maria demanded. Matthew attempted to brush it off, claiming he had only been trying to help Lauren feel better. But Maria didn't believe him. She knew that whatever he had been doing, it was wrong. The following day, Maria took the bottle of pills to a local pharmacist for testing. The results confirmed her suspicions. The pills contained unidentified substances that could lead to fluid retention in the body, which explained Lauren's growing stomach. Maria's fear intensified as she realized how much damage Matthew's actions had already caused. With this new evidence, Maria knew it was time to act. She went straight to the police and filed a report against Matthew for trespassing and giving Lauren unidentified medication. The police launched an investigation immediately, and within days, Matthew was arrested. He was charged with endangering the life of a minor, among other crimes. At the trial, Matthew attempted to defend his actions, but the overwhelming evidence made it clear that he had been manipulating Lauren for his own purposes. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and his pharmaceutical license was revoked. Maria felt a sense of relief, knowing that Matthew would no longer be able to harm anyone else. As the weeks went by, Lauren slowly began to recover. With the toxic substances out of her system, her health started to improve. But the emotional scars remained. Maria felt a deep sense of guilt for not noticing the signs sooner, but she was grateful that she had acted before it was too late. In the end, the story of Maria and Lauren was one of resilience, determination, and the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter. Maria had faced her worst fears and had done whatever it took to protect her child. Their journey was a testament to the strength of family and the power of a mother's love. Maria now knew that no matter what challenges life threw her way, she would always be there for Lauren, no longer blinded by the demands of work or everyday life. She would listen to her daughter, trust her instincts, and never again let something as dangerous as Matthew's manipulation slip under her radar. Their lives had changed, but their bond was stronger than ever, and Maria had learned that sometimes the greatest strength is simply being there for those you love when they need you the most. The story of Maria and her daughter Lauren emphasizes the profound importance of vigilance, communication, and trust in relationships, particularly within families. It serves as a powerful reminder that as we age, our responsibility to care for and protect those we love becomes even more crucial. The narrative highlights that sometimes our loved ones may be facing struggles they don't share with us, whether due to fear, pride, or a desire not to burden us. The story teaches us the importance of paying attention to subtle signs of distress, even when our loved ones try to hide them. It also underscores the significance of acting on our instincts, particularly when we feel something is wrong. Moreover, it reinforces the value of standing up for those we care about, no matter how difficult the situation may seem. In the end, it is love, determination, and courage that allow us to navigate even the most challenging circumstances. As we age, it becomes vital to remember that our wisdom and experience are key in guiding and protecting the next generation, fostering deep, trusting bonds within the family. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world to us. If you were touched by this story, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to Stories TH for more inspiring content. Together, let's continue celebrating the incredible power of parental love. Stay tuned for more, and thank you again for being a part of our community.